Hi, I'm Mike Mosher from Mosher Farms, coming to you today with a market garden update, as well as a little bit of terminology definitions for you. If you've ever wondered what heirloom variety, GMO, or GE stands for, stay tuned and we'll talk about it. Hey, so it is June 10th and everything is popping. So we got cucumbers coming in. Look at this. We picked cucumbers last Wednesday, and the cucumbers are out of control. So this is half a bushel in just 4 or 5 days, with plenty more on the vine coming in. A couple of them literally just a day away from picking. Now, when you have cucumbers, it turns into almost an everyday. You got to check, you got to trellis. And some of these plants, let me just give you a sneak peek over here. Some of these plants are up over the trellis wire, and I got to start trellising them laterally. Here's one right here that I missed. Get him started up in the right direction. So, not only are cucumbers doing phenomenal, but also our tomato plants are finally starting to really produce. Not as high of a production as I was hoping for this time of the season, but they are starting to make some really great tasting tomatoes. So if you check out down here, got a beautiful little set, and I tell you what, had a lot of rain. If you ever wonder why your tomatoes get a little split in them, it's because of the heavy rains. So, but I tell you what, for these little sun gold tomatoes, they're like candy. I kid you not. If you have a kid who refuses to eat his fruits and veggies, or even just his veggies, if you give him one of these bad boys, you won't be able to keep them on your table. So our tomato plants are also probably close to 5 foot tall. And not only do we have those sun golds coming in, but we have big beefs coming in. Let's see, we got, what's this one here? A Brandywine, which is an heirloom variety, and we're going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about differences between heirlooms, GMOs, and GE crops. But look at the size of these tomatoes. I mean, that thing's still growing. It's the size of a baseball. Got a couple celebrities right here. Beauties, absolutely gorgeous. As well as these are just regular red cherry tomatoes. We got some various sauce tomatoes. I tell you what, it's off to a fantastic start. Our peppers, let me just swing around here. These are our bell peppers, red, green, and orange. And I've tried growing peppers before with not a whole lot of luck. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence for this year, but I mean, every single plant, every one has 2, 3, 4. This is a weed. This is called wild eggplant. It grows in the fields around here. Get rid of it. But I mean, just these peppers just look fantastic. So I can't wait to really get going on those. We have a little basil plant here. We have another basil plant over there. I didn't really know how to prune it correctly, and I just found out. And now all of our basil plants have almost doubled in size in a week. Just in fullness. It's a very full plant now. Much healthier than it was. But the trick is, if you look, you just want to prune the top cluster of leaves here. And when you prune those, you'll notice right here, there's 2 more sets of leaves. So that's now going to technically double production. now you're going to have 2 branches coming off of there. So if you come through here every couple of days and you just prune off the tops of your basil, man, these things, you'll have a bush and a half when you're done with it. Here we have some hot peppers, started a little bit later. They're growing really, really nice. Down here are our jalapenos. Look at those beauties. And I tell you what, talk about flavor. They got some heat. They got that nice pepper flavor. We use them in our pickles to give it some heat, but also just change the flavor of the pickle just enough to keep everybody guessing as to what we're going to come up with next. Here we have our onions still. Not too much going on with the onions. They just kind of do their thing. In this aisle, this side is our bush beans. That side are our snow peas. And snow peas didn't quite come in as well as I wanted them to, but the beans, I mean, it's a jungle of beans. And we got flower sets on them already. And I figure in another probably 3 weeks, we'll have a ton of beans. We already have some snow peas. I was munching on those a little earlier, just to give you guys a little view. And that still had the flour on it. Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet. Now, down here, I've also not had very good luck with eggplant in the past. Now, if we take a peek, got some really great looking eggplant coming in. Again, each plant, 2 or 3 eggplants already, never mind the additional flowers that keep popping up. I think a big part of it is having the direct watering system. I think a big part of it is having the lack of weeds around it, so it makes my job a little bit easier for maintaining. But overall, I'm excited. I don't know if you can tell that. Now over here, on this side, out of control. I planted 15 or so various types of squashes, yellow squash, zucchini, and golden zucchini. And I'll show you a picture when we go inside after I harvest all of them. It's nuts. I mean, I'm already behind. I had some the other night. I roasted it with a little Parmesan cheese, and my God, my wife and I, we were hoping for more. But that was with the yellow squash. Yellow squash is cranking right now. If you look at the golden zucchini, just absolutely beautiful. Some of them are a little too big. So maybe we'll try some golden zucchini bread. We'll see. Over here in one of my extra spaces, we have our Connecticut field pumpkins coming in. Let's see. Our regular zucchini. Now people pick these for chefs at this size. We prefer to eat them a little bit bigger. Chefs like to cut them up really thin and that sort of stuff. But I haven't started selling to any restaurants yet. My goal for next year is going to be supplying 1 or 2 restaurants with some nice quality veg and that sort of stuff. So here we have a giant pumpkin. I just figured, hey, we got the space. Let's see what we can do. So we have a couple little, if you can see them down there, giant pumpkins coming in. There's another one. And then all the way down here, I have my butternut squash. Now, growing winter squash in a market garden is not ideal. It takes a long time to get up to a harvestable size. It takes up a ton of space. And the overall productivity is definitely on the lower side. So the summer squash is where I'm probably going to focus on next year. I'll probably have some winter squash. I always like growing pumpkins just because it's fun for the kids. I'll have some of them for next year, but it's more just for, you know, our family, maybe a little bit extra for some friends or, you know, the neighbors and that sort of stuff. But overall, that's the update from the market garden. Hey guys, here's just a quick view of our haul of golden zucchini, yellow squash, regular zucchini, oddball yellow zucchini, a couple of tomatoes, and cucumbers. Look at these oddballs. I ain't never seen one of these guys like this in my life, and now there's 3. Very interesting. Hi everybody. Just wanted to talk to you about something that is often talked about when you're talking about your food, and that is whether your food is GMO free or not. Now, my background, I'm a science teacher the rest of the school year, and the idea or the understanding of GMO versus non-GMO versus heirloom versus GE or genetically engineered, everything gets mumble jumbled, especially in the news and everything like that. Now, first off, some definitions. Heirloom. Heirloom is a variety of seed that has been continuously bred with the same seeds for generations and has not been changed with GMOs. So basically over there we grow Boston pickling cucumbers. They were developed in the late 1800s. Once the variety was developed, it has not changed. So that's what an heirloom variety is. There's tons of heirloom varieties of tomatoes and squash and all that sort of stuff. The next definition is GMO, genetically modified food. Now, when people hear this term, everybody gets all freaked out. GMO, GMO, GMO. The truth of the matter is you should be concerned with whether it's a GMO or a genetically engineered, a GE food. So a GMO food is an organism that has had its DNA changed over time. So if you think back with wolves eventually being domesticated to the dogs that we have today, that was through genetic modification. So you have genetic modification, which is through natural breeding, which is where you take the good wolf puppy and the nice wolf puppy and you breed them together and you end up creating a nicer puppy in the next generation. That's one way to do genetic modification. That's the way that everything that has been domesticated pretty much has been domesticated. Talking about cows, pigs, chickens, squash, all of that has been domesticated through genetic modification through what's called selective breeding. Now on the other side, there's genetic engineering. Genetic engineering is where you take the DNA from one organism and you splice it into the DNA of another organism. Now, I'm not going to get into all the technical DNA splicing terms and all that sort of stuff, but all that you need to know is that you have DNA from one organism and it's in another one. Now, this can be a little bit of a hairy topic too. Most organisms, so you could have DNA spliced from one organism to another organism, and it might be the same type of plant. So from one type of squash to another type of squash. A good example is rice. Some people were trying to create a flood-resistant rice that could stay underwater for like 2 weeks and without dying. And what they did was they found the DNA of a wild type of rice that could stay underwater for that long. And instead of going through the traditional breeding, selective breeding process to select for those traits, what they did was they took the DNA out of the wild rice and bred it and crossed it into the domesticated rice and just sped up the process. Instead of it taking 5-10 years, they took them probably 3. So that's one way of genetic engineering. You're going same type of organism to the same type of organism. So you could go from one type of cow to another type of cow to create a better beef cow by just doing some gene splicing. That's what they do a lot over in China. Now, the part where everybody kind of gets a little freaked out was when you take the DNA from one organism and you put it into a completely different organism. For instance, the DNA of maybe an Arctic flounder and you put it into the DNA of a strawberry to make that strawberry frost resistant, so the plant doesn't die back or doesn't stop fruiting after the frost. So it's actually cold resistant. Now they've done this, you've probably heard about Monsanto and corn, soybeans, all that sort of stuff. And Monsanto is a company that has decided that they are allowed to patent DNA, which is inside of you, me, and everything. They decided that it was okay to say this is our DNA, no one else is allowed to have it. What Monsanto's done is they've taken the DNA from a bacteria and they put it into their crops, and then their crops can be sprayed with Roundup. Now, I don't know if you guys know what Roundup is, but Roundup is literally a weed killer that is non-selective. It doesn't really choose what it wants to kill. It kills anything that is a plant. Now, what they've done is by taking the DNA of the bacteria, which produces a resistance to the Roundup, they put it into your corn, and now the corn plant survives. Now, technically, it's not in the corn that you eat. It's not in the portion of the plant that you eat, but the plant, it can actually be sprayed with Roundup. It can also create its own Roundup chemical, which is kind of scary if you ask me. You know, a plant creating its own toxic. Now, we do eat plants that have their own toxins like tomatoes and potatoes, but we don't eat the toxic parts. So there's a lot of hairy fine lines when you get into this whole GMO, non-GMO, genetically engineered, heirloom sort of stuff. So I sure hope that that explanation has helped you guys out a little bit. It's a touchy subject. Feel free to leave me any questions, comments down in the comments section below, and I'll be very happy to get back to you guys with all my knowledge that I have, or if I don't know, I'll look it up for you. But you should always be asking, where's my food coming from? So that's it for this edition of the Mosher Farms Market Garden Update. I hope you guys are inspired and maybe you've even learned something along the way. So stay tuned for the next video, probably in a week or two, when I give you an update on how everything's going around here. All right, take care.